I never thought a single touch could stop the world from falling apart, but that night in St. Mary's emergency room, it did. I was slumped in a plastic chair, my shirt sticky with Lily's blood, trying for the 10th time to reach her mother. My phone kept going straight to voicemail. I whispered her name, like saying it softer might make her answer, but San Diego was too far, and she had been gone from our lives too long. My hands shook, blistered from years of work, and I felt completely powerless. The surgeon's words echoed in the sterile air. "Mr. Alvarez, we can't proceed without consent from both legal guardians. It has to be your ex-wife." My chest tightened, and the room blurred around me. All my sacrifices, every late night, every pancake breakfast, every piano lesson I never missed, it didn't matter. On paper, I was alone, and my daughter was slipping further from my grasp. I buried my face in my hands. The tears came unbidden, mixing with the grit of concrete dust I'd never had time to wash away. Around me, the hospital moved on, indifferent. Machines beeped. Nurses rushed. Parents held children, whispering and comforting. But for me, the world had shrunk to nothing but the image of Lily, lying pale on the gurney, her small hand reaching out as if she could grab life itself. Then a hand touched my shoulder, light, deliberate, grounding. I looked up, startled. A woman stood there, tall, poised, wearing a black coat that didn't belong in a place like this. Blonde hair perfectly gathered, diamond ring catching the fluorescent lights. Her eyes didn't look down at me with pity, but something quieter, something I hadn't felt in years. "I know that feeling," she said softly. Just those words cut through the panic, the fear, the helplessness that had consumed me. I blinked at her, unable to speak, unsure why a stranger would care. Charlotte Whitmore didn't move away. Instead, she leaned closer, her tone steady. "You're not alone anymore." For the first time that night, I felt a flicker of hope. She stayed beside me as I watched my phone in despair, dial after dial to Isabella going unanswered. I couldn't breathe. My world had narrowed to the rhythm of my own shaking hands and the memory of my daughter's voice asking if she was good enough, asking why her mom had left. I had promised her I would be both parents. I would never let her question her worth again. Charlotte pulled out her phone and made a call. "Henry," she said quietly, and her voice carried authority, urgency. In minutes, she was making calls, speaking with hospital administration, lawyers, anyone who could help. Her presence shifted everything. Doors that were locked to me suddenly seemed to open. I felt almost guilty as I watched her work. I wanted to refuse her help, to tell her we would be fine without her, but I couldn't. My pride was useless here. Hours later, a nurse approached. "We've received authorization. Surgery can proceed." Relief hit me like a tidal wave, and I sank into the chair, numb. Charlotte's hand rested lightly on mine, steadying me. "Why?" I whispered, voice cracking. "Why would you do this for us?" Her eyes, reflecting a grief I recognized in a different life, met mine. "Because once I needed someone, and no one came. I couldn't save him, but maybe I can help you save her." Her words settled in my chest. Pain didn't care about wealth or status. It didn't care about who had money or who didn't. And somehow, in a place I never expected, I wasn't alone anymore. As the surgeons wheeled Lily away, Charlotte stayed with me, not as a stranger, but as a witness, a calm in my storm. My life had always been about sacrifice, about keeping my daughter safe, about being enough when the world said I wasn't. And now, for the first time in months, I felt a spark of something I hadn't dared to name. The fluorescent lights of St. Mary's burned bright, but for a moment they felt warm. I lifted my head and met Charlotte's gaze. She wasn't looking at me with pity. She was looking with understanding, with empathy, with something that might one day become more. And in that moment, I realized that even in the darkest, most desperate night, life could surprise you with hope. The hours after Lily's surgery blurred into a strange, surreal haze. I stayed in the waiting room, my knees aching from hours in that hard plastic chair, my hands still trembling from the adrenaline and fear. Every time the door opened, I flinched, hoping it wasn't bad news. Charlotte stayed beside me, quiet but present, her hand brushing against mine sometimes, just enough to remind me she hadn't gone anywhere. When the surgeon finally appeared, exhaustion hit me like a truck. "She's stable," he said, voice calm but not casual. "The surgery went well." Relief and disbelief crashed over me, leaving me too weak to stand. My knees buckled, and I sank lower into the chair, eyes closed, barely able to take in the words. Charlotte's hand found mine again, warm, grounding. I wanted to thank her, to tell her how much this meant, but the words stuck in my throat. How could I explain that a stranger, no, not a stranger, a woman I barely knew, had changed everything in my life with nothing but courage and care? She didn't wait for gratitude. She simply smiled, soft but knowing, like she already understood. Over the next few days, Charlotte's presence became a lifeline. She visited Lily in the hospital, reading her stories in a soft voice that made the sterile room feel alive. She carried stuffed animals and little gifts, but it wasn't the presence that mattered. It was her attention, her patience, her willingness to step into our world without judgment. Lily's laughter began to return, small at first, fragile, then bold, filling the corners of my heart I hadn't realized had gone numb. Even at home, Charlotte found ways to help. She sat with us at the kitchen table, helping Lily with homework, teaching her little tricks for piano practice, making our modest apartment feel a little warmer, a little lighter. I watched them, sometimes, standing in the doorway, my heart caught between gratitude and disbelief. I was used to handling everything myself, to carrying the weight of the world on my shoulders, and yet here she was, offering help not as charity, not as pity, but as something real. One evening, after Lily had gone to bed, Charlotte and I found ourselves on our tiny balcony, the city lights stretching out below us. I leaned against the railing, exhausted, still unsure how to process everything that had happened. The night was quiet, except for the distant hum of traffic. "Daniel," Charlotte said softly, "you don't have to carry everything alone." I looked at her, frustration and vulnerability tangled in my chest. "I have to," I said, voice tight. "I promised Lily I'd be enough for her. I can't let anyone take that away. Not her mother, not anyone." Her gaze softened. "You already are enough. Look at her. Look at the love she has for you. That's proof. You don't need money or status. You just need to be here. That's what matters." I swallowed hard, the tightness in my chest easing slightly. Somehow, her words found the part of me that had been buried under fear and doubt. "I don't know how to let anyone in," I admitted. "I've been alone for so long. I'm used to carrying the burden myself." Charlotte reached out, brushing her fingers against mine again. "It's okay," she said. "You don't have to do it alone anymore. Not with me." The vulnerability in her voice mirrored my own, and for the first time, I felt the faintest spark of something I hadn't felt in years: hope. Over the next few weeks, Charlotte's presence became almost constant. She helped with doctor appointments, physical therapy sessions, and even stayed for late-night piano practice with Lily. At first, I tried to keep her at arm's length, wary of pride, of fear, of trusting someone too soon. But Lily didn't care about my walls. She adored Charlotte, laughing and sharing secrets, asking for her help with little projects. Seeing them together, I realized that love wasn't just about sacrifice or duty. It could also be shared, multiplied, and nurtured. One afternoon, as I sorted through some construction plans for a small business I was trying to start, I came across a thick envelope I hadn't noticed before. My heart stopped when I opened it. Inside were medical invoices, stamped, finalized, paid in full. $70,000. My chest tightened, anger and disbelief surging. I couldn't believe it. Someone had paid all of this, and I didn't even know. That evening, I went to Charlotte's penthouse. I needed answers. I needed to understand why someone like her, someone with everything, would care so deeply about a construction worker and his daughter. My boots echoed against the polished floors as I entered. Charlotte looked up, startled. "You paid these," I said, my voice tight with a mix of gratitude and fury. I dropped the invoices onto the glass coffee table, papers scattered like accusations. "Yes," she said, softly, steady. "I did. Lily needed the best care." I shook my head, words caught in my throat. "It's $70,000, Charlotte. $70,000. Do you know what that looks like to me? To find out we've been turned into a charity project?" Her face paled, but she didn't flinch. "It's not charity. It's love. I did it because I care about you, about her, about both of you." I wanted to believe her, but pride and fear held me back. "You care about how it makes you feel. The rich widow helping the poor man, the hero saving the day." Charlotte's eyes filled with tears, but she stood firm. "No, I love being with you. I love being with Lily. That isn't about money." Her words trembled, but they carried truth. I wanted to scream, to demand more, to lash out at the unfairness of it all, but something in me softened. Maybe trust, maybe hope, maybe the first stirrings of love began to break through the walls I had built. That night, I left her penthouse with the weight of doubt still pressing on me, but also a new, fragile understanding. Life was messy, love was messy, and sometimes it required letting someone in, even when pride said you shouldn't. The days that followed were heavy. Charlotte didn't reach out right away after our fight over the bills, and the silence felt like a weight pressing on my chest. Lily asked where she was, her big brown eyes searching mine with that innocent trust that tore me apart. I told her Charlotte was busy, and she nodded, but I could see the hope lingering there, fragile and bright. Every night I fell asleep worrying not just about her recovery, but about the emptiness Charlotte had left behind. Then came the envelope. Thick, official, stamped with legal markings that made my stomach twist. I held it in my hands, frozen, afraid to look. Petition for emergency custody. Isabella's name glared at me in bold letters. She wanted Lily back. After all these years, after leaving us with nothing but a note and heartache, she wanted her daughter. And she wasn't alone. Rebecca Walsh, one of Chicago's sharpest, most relentless family attorneys, was on her side. I felt my chest tighten until I thought I might not breathe. Evidence against me, they claimed, that I had manipulated the situation to gain favors from Charlotte, that I had turned my own daughter into a pawn. My mind reeled, trying to imagine a courtroom where everyone would see me as nothing more than a desperate man, unworthy of raising his child. Lily's small hand in mine that night felt suddenly heavier than it ever had. I called Henry Cole, the one lawyer I trusted after everything with Charlotte. My voice cracked as I explained. "She's trying to take her from me, Henry. They're saying I used her as bait for money, that I'm unfit." Henry sighed heavily. "I've seen Walsh work. She's ruthless. But we'll fight, Daniel. You've built a life for Lily. Everyone who knows you can testify. We'll need every voice to protect her." The trial began in a courtroom that smelled faintly of old wood and tension. Isabella appeared polished, calm, collected, the perfect image of stability. On paper, she was everything a judge might want for a child. Steady job, clean record, sober, composed. But I knew the truth. Stability didn't erase years of absence. Love didn't show up in neat suits and glossy documents. Walsh opened with a calculated sharpness, painting me as barely afloat, a man incapable of providing for his daughter. She brought up unpaid bills, modest living conditions, my work with calloused hands. Each word was a knife, each gesture a reminder of how easily appearances could destroy truth. I felt small, powerless, and my throat tightened as I tried to stand tall for Lily. Henry called neighbors, teachers, anyone who could speak for me. They told stories of devotion, of piano lessons never missed, of scraped knees kissed, and math problems patiently solved. Their words were true, heartfelt, but against Walsh's glossy narrative they felt fragile, almost invisible. I began to fear that love alone wouldn't be enough. Then the doors opened, and silence swept through the room. Charlotte stepped in. Her black dress was simple, her hair pulled back, but her presence carried authority, resolve, and something fierce. For the first time since our fight, I met her eyes. What I saw there wasn't pity, it was determination. Henry called her to the stand. Charlotte spoke clearly, telling the court about St. Mary's, about the night she had seen me fighting for Lily's life. She explained that I had never asked her for money, that I had only wanted to save my daughter. She admitted she had paid the bills not as charity, but because Lily deserved the best care. Mr. Alvarez never sought my money, she said firmly. He only wanted a chance to care for his daughter. I gave freely because I cared for them, because I loved them. The room held its breath. For the first time I saw cracks in Walsh's confident facade. The balance was shifting, fragile but real. Then, unexpectedly, Isabella's mother rose from the gallery. Her voice trembled but carried weight. I cannot stay silent. I love my daughter, but she is not ready to raise Lily. 3 months sober does not erase years of absence. Daniel has been the one constant in Lily's life. He is the father she needs, the father she deserves. My chest tightened as her words settled like stones in still water. For the first time, I allowed myself a flicker of hope. The truth, though fragile, might just save Lily. Charlotte rose again. Your Honor, she said, commanding attention with a quiet power. Before you render your decision, I wish to make a statement. She paused, glanced at me, then returned to the bench. I am petitioning to adopt Lily Alvarez, with Daniel's full consent. We intend to marry, creating a stable, loving household. Lily has already become my daughter in every way that matters. I love her, Father, not out of pity, but because together we are a family. I stand here willing to put my life, my reputation, and my everything behind that truth. Gasps rippled through the room. I stared at her, unable to move, unable to breathe. The judge's gaze was sharp, but Charlotte didn't falter. When he finally asked for my consent, my voice broke, but I managed to speak the truth I had carried for years. Yes, Your Honor, with all my heart. I want this. I want her. Lily's small voice broke the silence. Does this mean Charlotte gets to be my mom for real? Her joy rang clear and bright, shattering the tension in the courtroom. I reached for Charlotte's hand, our fingers interlining, and for the first time in years, I felt that life was no longer fragile, no longer uncertain. Lily was safe, and somehow, in the middle of all the chaos, love had found a way to win.
6 months later, the chapel at St. Mary's glowed softly with sunlight filtering through stained glass. White lilies lined the altar, and a small gathering of friends and family filled the pews. My hands shook as I fidgeted with the ring tucked in my pocket. My calloused fingers, worn from years of construction work, now trembled for a completely different reason. When the doors opened, Charlotte appeared. Simple white dress, no jewels, no grandeur, just grace. And beside her, Lily skipped down the aisle, carrying both our rings in a velvet box, her excitement infectious. "Daddy, look! I get to give the rings!" she squealed, her laughter echoing through the chapel. My heart clenched with joy I hadn't allowed myself to feel in years. I whispered to Charlotte as she reached me, "You look beautiful." She smiled softly, brushing my tie. "And you cleaned up better than I expected." The ceremony was quiet but full of emotion. Vows were exchanged, promises whispered, And when we kissed, Lily threw her arms around both of us, shouting, "Finally! Now we're officially a family!" Tears streamed down my face. For the first time, I felt complete. Our celebration didn't need a ballroom or a five-star hotel. It was in the backyard of our new house near Lily's school. String lights hung between the oak trees, neighbors brought casseroles, laughter floated into the night, and our worlds, once so separate, had collided perfectly. Dusty boots of my construction crew mingled with the polished shoes of Charlotte's foundation board members. Everyone felt at home. Life settled into a rhythm I had never dared to imagine. Charlotte visited often, helping Lily with homework, cooking meals, and sitting beside me as we watched our daughter fall asleep. We laughed together, argued a little, and learned each other's quirks. Our love grew quietly, steadily, in the background of everyday life. One summer afternoon, Lily was at the picnic table in the backyard, hammering little nails into birdhouses with my guidance. "Dad, you're doing it wrong," she teased, rolling her eyes. "I've been building longer than you've been alive," I said, laughing, wiping sweat from my brow. "Yeah, but I'm smarter," she shot back, grinning with pride. Charlotte stepped outside carrying lemonade, her hand resting on her rounded belly, the other holding the tray. She glowed in the afternoon sun, radiant and at peace. I pressed a kiss to her forehead. "Hear that, baby girl? Your big sister's already plotting against me." Lily folded her arms, pretending to scowl. "I'm not abandoning you. I'm going to be a doctor. I'll fix people who are broken, just like Mom fixed our family." Charlotte's eyes filled with tears. Mine burned with emotion. Mom. The word, spoken casually by our little girl, felt like a miracle. After everything we had endured, accidents, legal battles, fear, loss, our family was whole. Looking around that backyard, the laughter, the chaos, the mismatched tables, I realized what I had never allowed myself to hope for. This was more than survival. We were living. Lily was thriving, Charlotte and I were building love together, and our small, imperfect world was filled with joy, trust, and forgiveness. Family wasn't just about blood. It was built day by day, choice by choice, in moments of courage, love, and vulnerability. And in the glow of string lights, with our daughter's laughter filling the air, I knew this was everything I had ever dreamed of, everything we had fought for, everything we had earned together. For the first time in a long time, I could breathe freely. We were not just surviving anymore. We were living, loving, and building a life that no one could take away. And as Charlotte rested her hand on my shoulder, our fingers intertwined, and Lily's laughter rang around us, I realized that hope, once fragile and distant, had become our reality.